Oké. Eerste vraag. Er bestaan veel conspiratietheorieën op dit moment, vooral over COVID. Er zit in sommige een kern van waarheid, maar zijn de meeste wat over de top. Ik heb er 2 uitgepikt, kun je daar iets over zeggen? 1. Er is een soort schaduwregering die bewust dingen aanstuurt, zoals mondkapjesgebruik voor gehoorzaamheid, vaccinatiepropaganda en van alles beslissen voor bijvoorbeeld onze regering. En B, het virus en het vaccin.
One section at a time, please.
Nou, dat was de section.
Somebody's asking about, is there a shadow government?
Yeah.
There's a shadow government, but they are no longer in control. Because there's a shadow government, but they're just human beings who thought that they had an in. Many of them have friends that are not visible, so energy-based, but they are no longer privy to what the entire agenda is about. So, how effective is the shadow government? Not. They no longer have the control.
Dus de shadow government wordt ook gebruikt.
Of course they get used. They're just,
Puppets.
Yeah. Sometimes whole lineages, because it's, of course, the genetic imprinting. So if you are the child of somebody who was willing to be a puppet, then you already have that memory in your genetic makeup. It's much easier than to get the vibration in there. But the typical conspiracy theory, no, because that's op menselijk niveau. That is just not very effective. There are people who are conspiring, but that's not what the problem is.
En als we het hebben over de 12 bloedlijnen bijvoorbeeld, waar mensen het wel eens over hebben, waar moet je dan aan denken? Moet je dan denken aan de shadow government of de invisible connections from the shadow government?
Shadow government.
Als een van jullie vragen heeft, moet je gewoon er tussendoor gaan, hè?
Ja.
Als hij iets zegt, anders ga ik het rijtje af.
But of course, the person is supposed to ask the question, so this is a complete surprise. Was this your question?
Nee, dit zijn in de vragen die ingestuurd zijn.
Oh, okay.
Dus als niemand vragen heeft of erop reageert, gaan we gewoon de vragen af.
Okay.
Ja. En als die, laten we zeggen, shadow governments niet meer per se heel erg effectief zijn. Ze hebben wel dingen, ze hebben wel zaken aangezwengeld. Maar die kunnen we dus in principe redelijk makkelijk stoppen. Of is het een bepaalde flow die in gang is gezet en dat is dus moeilijk te stoppen?
Yes. Okay, the shadow government people, most of them are aware that there is no longer the control. When I say they're not effective, doesn't mean they don't have an effect on Earth or life on Earth. They're no longer effective reaching their own goals, because the goals they had in mind was that they were supposed to be special or part of a group that was going to be special and exempt from all suffering. The ones that are going to be exempt from suffering are only people who are still needing to be used, who are needed to bring universal energy through the hands of mankind. This has to happen until a certain time period. It still has to go through the organic body. That's what I mean by no longer effective.
Ja.
They can't protect themselves anymore. They thought they were protected, but they're not.
Dankjewel. En is het zo dat het exclusief is voor, laten we zeggen, mensen die lightworker zijn of denken dat ze het zijn? Of kan het ook gewoon die werking van het licht gewoon, ja, kan het ook gewoon bij willekeurige mensen manifesteren? Ik bedoel, is het zo dat omdat je lightworker bent, dat je dan ook privileges hebt. Oftewel eigenlijk gebruik maken van hetzelfde systeem.
If you're a light worker, you have less privileges. Why? Because you are aware and you should be in knowing that you are nothing. Okay?
Ja.
So people really, it used to be that if you are first, you're an energy worker, then you're a light worker, there's star seeds, and these are all functions. And light worker became a glamorous sort of thing
Ja.
because then you belong to the group of positive-minded people that are trying to save the world. Light worker, a true light worker, is not looking at any of those titles. It simply means you have been given the qualities that allow you to work with light. Light is information. Energy is also information. Light is a hint at what the source of the energy is that keeps it going.
Ja.
That's it. Let me tell you something. There's more light in people, true light in people. They don't even realize that they're a light worker.
Mhm.
Out of 100 people who call themselves light worker, maybe one.
Dan heb
The
je
same rule is for healer.
vervuiling. Krijg je dan.
No, it's an illusion.
Mhm.
If you are a light worker, you are in service of. Most people who work with energy because they think they're doing good and because they should. This is what I referred to last time when I said sending a healing or something or supporting people with energy really has very little to do of what I personally think of the person or
Ja.
what I think is nice. It's
Ja.
a matter of correctness. What needs to be supported?
Ja. En dus je ego en identiteit zet je opzij voor het werk.
No, you put them in the proper position.
Ja.
So they're not included in the decision making of how to work with that energy. Otherwise, it still works. It's still good to do nice things because you think they're nice, but you don't get the full potential of the working when you include, I think I'll be nice to so-and-so because they really deserve it. Saying that, thinking that, feeling that, doing that is still very positive. So I don't want anybody to think that I'm like shoving that aside. I'm just trying to clarify what the differences are when you're a light worker and you're in function. When you're in function, it's not a matter of what you like, what you don't like, blah, blah, blah. It's a matter of what is correct and what is needed where.
Ja, duidelijk.
Ja.
Dankjewel.
Dan is de vraag. Ze zeggen dat het virus en het vaccin pogingen zijn om de bevolking uit te dunnen. Is dat waar?
Ja.
En waarom willen ze dan de bevolking uitdunnen?
There's too many people on Earth, so it's difficult to control. And people are just, the quality of the body is just deteriorating while the spirit is growing. So the spirit is recognizing, I'm calling it spirit, but it's connected to mind, is recognizing that the vitality of the body is becoming more and more dependent on resources outside of the person's self. And that's waking up, and it's too difficult to control. It's calling the flock. You call the flock.
Als je het over de schaduwregeringen hebt, praten we over één global schaduwregering of hebben we het over meerdere partijen die op die schaal bezig zijn?
Depending on what layer each government has its own shadow. that shadow as a source that it may or may not be aware of. And then you can come close and closer and closer, and until you find, you mentioned earlier 12. Boy, yeah, I can't count at this point any more than 5 or 7 that have anything to say. So there may be 12, but no more than 7 that have any say so now. And probably if you get really to the nitty gritty, it's no more than 3 that have any empowerment.
And these are physical persons.
Nee, meer families.
They are in body.
Yeah.
That could be traceable. Like if you had a Geiger counter that was good, very good at measuring if you have a connection with things contra all the loving that humanity is capable of, then it would go tick, 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 tick.
Mm.
Yeah, so they carry that vibration. But they're just, we talk about entities, we talk about all of this, and we are still responsible for our decision. And sometimes it's unfortunate that we're born into a family and you're groomed, you may be groomed. But if it's really important for you to have a chance to step out of it, that person, genetically predisposed to this or not, will be able to feel, experience, and hear the calling, and they will have opportunities to step out. So it is possible to break through the controlling frequencies that are implanted. Not everybody will agree. I've had very few conversations with people who see these things, but we are not all in agreement how that works as far as humanity as it was meant to be. So in other words, humanoids carrying the God spark. But then that's another story.
Yeah.
De vraag, is er fysiek buitenaards leven in dit zonnestelsel?
You mean buitenaards leven in body?
Ja, dus fysiek
Yes.
zoals we het aan kunnen raken.
Yes.
En weet je ook waar?
Who's asking that?
Staat hier? Anders vraag ik het nu.
Then I would ask, why do you want to know, and what are you going to do with that information? So another important thing about this question answer. Any question is allowed. If I don't know, I will say so. But sometimes I will say, why do you want to know, and what are you going to do with it? Because it's easy to get answers and forget the responsibility that comes with the answers.
Dat is ook een
Not
belangrijk.
my question.
Yeah,
Wasn't me.
doesn't matter.
Ja, het was.
I know.
Relax, Stefan.
Maar Inge, dit bestaat dus ook zonder body.
Zonder?
Body.
Oh, there's lots.
Ja, precies.
There's whole lots.
Ja.
You know what a nice question would be? I'll just make my own question and then give an answer. It would be interesting if somebody said, why are there more without body than with body? Okay.
Oh ja, jeetje. Dat is heel interessant.
See,
I know the answer.
most people can do something with that.
If there can be more, like without body at one location, than with body. There can be one person, like at location where, like here, is sitting, but without body, there can be several.
Well, yeah, that's a nice answer.
Dus dan gaat het om de beperking van
No.
de plek.
Your organic body can withstand certain vibrations. If you don't have a vaste vorm with liquid, etc., etc., you can move a lot easier. You're not as restricted. We are very restricted. If we don't breathe air with oxygen in it, our bodies will die.
Yeah.
If you don't have a body, you can do whatever you want for a really long time until you meet somebody who can disrupt your electrical charge. Then you might end up having a problem, or absorb the electrical charge, or diffuse the electrical charge. See? So they too have some vulnerabilities, but anything within an organic system, they are much more vulnerable. That's the true reason. Although most people can't communicate with that which cannot be seen, not communicate properly. So then some have figured out a way to sort of have an organic body.
En toch wil je dat organische body wil je graag hebben, want je kan er alles in versnellen.
You need, the reason we need our organic body goes way back.
Hmm.
Okay. And then there are a little annoying things like karma, that most people, instead of cleaning up their karma, they create more with every lifetime. And then we need more people to create up the increased value and.
Yeah.
Okay. So the reason why we need an organic body, because there was a design. That design needs to come to completion before you then go to another form. It could be another type of organic body, or if you're lucky, you don't have to have an organic body anymore. But things have to come to completion first. And it doesn't mean that you as an individual have to complete everything, but certainly humanity as a single body needs to come to completion.
En is dat een soort van universeel systeem? Of geldt dat alleen voor humanity? Ik
Niet
bedoel,
alleen for humanity, but humanity is included in that cycle.
ja, oké.
But humans, as we know them, are not the only ones.
Ja.
Ja.
Dus het gaat om het evolueren.
Ja.
Ja.
Transition and then transformation.
Ja.
Oké.
Dat over karma, daar waren ook vragen over. Kan je besluiten om gewoon uit karma te stappen of het niet meer te hebben?
Je kan niet besluiten om uit karma te stappen. And dan it's done. It's not like a decision. It takes action. Wil je geen karma meer hebben, om die keus te maken van ik wil dit niet meer, dan zou het wijs zijn om de consequenties en de conditions te begrijpen. So, what are you going to do with that information for the greater whole?
Dus je kan het wel vertragen.
Yeah,
Ja.
you can slowing karma is very easy.
Yeah.
Just do something that is out of balance and you have slowed the completion of your karma.
Yeah.
It is completing your karma is more difficult.
Is het eigenlijk zo, kun je zien karma als iets wat een functie heeft, zeg maar. Als het er niet zou zijn, dan zouden bepaalde dingen niet ja, vorm krijgen.
That's how I experience karma. There's people who have studied karma and they could give a very big explanation. Basically, anytime you bring something out of balance and the original intention, you're building karma. Anytime you bring damage to someone, it's karma. It's truly not that cut and dry because
En als mensen zeg maar nou
intention has a very big part in this.
En als mensen zeg maar nu dan in bijvoorbeeld therapie gaan ze in regressie om bepaalde stukken karma op te lossen of los te laten. Ik bedoel, ja, werkt het inderdaad zo? Of is dat een eindfase van iets?
There are people that have that go through past life therapy or experiences. There are people that do regression therapy that stays within one lifetime. I don't know very much about it. I know that I'm very careful, even when I'm in knowing, to suggest it. Because memory is memory. And even if you go back to when you're 5 years old and you pull up memories, your brain reconstructs memories from that age. That's why I have recommended to somebody, let's say they feel they were traumatized when they were 10 years old. I said, your verwerking was that of a 10-year-old. Try to look back at the experience as an adult and include more factors. It may soften. A 10-year-old child can be traumatized by something that an adult thinks, what is that about?
Yeah.
It's nothing. But the condition was right at that moment when that was said to that child or explained to the child or not explained. You see, that could be for that particular child in that moment a trauma. So they will remember it as such. That's different.
Yeah.
Things that you've done in your past. For what should, let's pick something extreme. Let's say 500 years ago, you decided to play with fire and you burned an entire village down and 150 people were burned to death. And you said, good, my experiment worked. Okay, so I'm making it very extreme. So there's no sorrow because all that also helps.
Mhm.
You cannot solve that karma of your deeds that you did then in this life. What karma is very good at is explaining to you where possibly you've gotten an issue. Maybe you're afraid of fire. So
Yeah.
if you can go back, you could possibly say, that's why I'm afraid of fire, because it really did something bad to my soul, my spirit, when I decided to cook 150 people. So then you develop a fear of fire. It could be that you're one of those 150 people that got cooked. That's
Yeah.
why today you're a little afraid of fire. It's genetic memory. But it can then you can resolve that by understanding, accepting, embracing, and then again releasing. When needed, forgiveness of them who cooked you, or forgiveness of yourself because you cooked others. Forgiveness is a very powerful tool if it's used properly. But you cannot all of a sudden say, well, I'm going to save 150 people from fire and now I'm even. It doesn't work that way.
Nee.
But it could explain why you decide to be a fireman. It helps you understand you in the here and now. And the whole point of any of this is you learn to be the best that you can be and not be someone who cooks other people.
Ja.
That's the point of understanding all of this. No more. It's
Ja.
not, you know,
So
to
karma
understand
is a teaching
self.
tool, actually.
What?
Karma is a teaching tool.
Teaching tool,
Ervaring.
explanation. Karma can be a lot of things if you look at it. I find that most people, even people who understand karma and explain karma and teach karma, my feeling is that their understanding is incomplete. And mine is very incomplete. So I am just trying to to honor the question of the evening. And of course, if anybody else knows more about any of these questions, that's what this is about.
Ja.
We also want to move to discussion. So
Yeah.
if someone has a question, you have more information, please share.
Yeah, I find this karma thing very interesting and puzzling, and indeed, like what you said, is but it's very often my gut feeling that people, even people who work with it, don't really understand everything of it. Like,
Yeah, even
it seems
people
to
who
be
have
quite
sight
interesting for
and
people.
can see what happens in the past, seeing what happened in the past, knowing with lowercase k does not mean understanding. Without understanding, it won't lead you to wisdom.
So observing is not understanding.
Observing leads to understanding.
Maar sommige dingen kan je natuurlijk maar tot een bepaald niveau zien. En de achterliggende dingen kan je net niet zien.
Ja.
En dat mis je dan.
Yeah. And that's why we have to remain humble.
Ja.
And as we develop, evolve, you'll see more.
Je had het over genetic memory, maar uit een past life. In de meeste gevallen is genetic memory toch gewoon iets fysieks wat je van je ouders meekrijgt. Dus de vraag is, hoe werkt dat je van een past life genetic memory in de gegevens hebt zitten die je van je vader en moeder bij wijze van spreken zou krijgen?
Okay. Genetic memory is also, the influence of genetic memory can also be carried through energy, pure energy. So you can actually incur genetic memory, or maybe that's what I just call it, even if you do not have any genetic connection. So outside of the physical connection, for instance, there was a test. And when you have an intimate interaction with another person, physical, that person leaves a genetic memory marker with you.
Mm.
It doesn't have to travel through your cells, and you don't have to be born with it.
Yeah.
Genetic memory is out there. That's the physical way. If you have a compatible vibration in your body, and there's in consciousness are all the memories are in consciousness, and it's a good match, you can connect and end up with a genetic memory, or I call it genetic memory. I don't think the scientists will call it genetic memory.
No.
And that's why you have to be very careful with past lives. Because even if you see the person as yourself and you feel, oh, that's me, it could be a completely different person's life and have nothing to do with your lifeline, let alone the misinterpretations or the mistranslations. Just imagine the invisible in the past, for as far as we are concerned, are just little energy particles floating around in consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
So how your system or your reader puts those particles together can have influence. I'm speaking Dutch and English.
Yeah.
It can influence the picture that's formed. It's always good to remember that. It's like, the pendule story?
Yeah.
When people take something on a chain
Mm-hmm.
to get the yes/no answer. And that can be influenced by someone's thought.
Alleen het pendel werkt bij mij helemaal niet. Die gaat niks, die beweegt helemaal niet.
Die wil helemaal niks doen.
Helemaal niks.
Ja.
Tolereer jij het dan niet, Gerard?
Ik weet het niet. Hij doet het gewoon niet.
Ja, mijn vriendin gebruikt een pendel, zeg maar, voor alles. Die meten alles mee uit bij cliënten. Dus,
Het is in ieder geval wel een duidelijk signaal, Gerard.
Heel duidelijk signaal voor mij ook. Jij gaat niet peddelen.
Nee. Aan de andere kant, je kan het ook zo vertalen. Je hebt die pendel niet nodig.
Ja, zo moet ik.
die moet je het
zijn
zo maar
all
interpreteren
tools.
dat het bij mij ook niks doet.
Pardon me?
Bij mij doet hij ook niks. Tenminste, ik snap niet hoe zo'n pendel werkt. Dus al dat soort dingen. Ja.
Oké.
Would you like to know?
Hoe het te doen, bedoel je?
No, how
Hoe
it
het
works.
werkt. Ja.
Ja, waarom niet?
It's reacting to energy. That's why I said that, because it's a very simple answer. It reacts to energy.
And
Okay?
it's the energy of the person holding the pendulum or whatever.
Not supposed to be.
Mhm.
Because you're gathering information that is outside of yourself.
Mhm.
So it's a tool to aid you in a type of channeling. Okay?
Mhm.
So therefore, you have to look if somebody pendles. Lots of people are very receptive, and through their body travels the energy. They could be very good, but they may not be good at filtering interference.
Mhm.
Okay.
When we first did this in groups, we tested it. We tested it if I could make the pendulum move when I knew that it was the opposite and it's possible. And then there was a more sophisticated machine that I wanted to check for my supplements. And she asked the machine and how they measure the energy in your body. And it was so easy to affect how the machine worked for me,
Mhm.
but just by looking at it. But the lady was very good and she distracted me. She noticed that I was interested in a book and she suddenly goes, "Oh, look at that book." And then my focus was where she was pointing, and then she could get a more clean reading according to the machine. So anything electronic can be affected by our own thoughts, because our thoughts are energy too. It just depends on how focused you are, or can be. Okay.
Als je het toch over gedachten hebt en hoe we energie kunnen beïnvloeden, staat er, hoe kunnen we ons bewustzijn maximaal activeren?
Okay. Does it say what layer of consciousness?
Nee, hoe leg je dat uit eerst?
Okay. There are layers of consciousness. There's your own consciousness. There's your family consciousness or your household. Then there's your street. There's your town. And it goes on and on and on and on and on. Then there's collective consciousness, which is the entire humanity. Then there's collective consciousness that then includes another species, etc., etc. So is that what we're asking about consciousness? Or are you talking about awareness of?
Nou, het gaat er eigenlijk om, hoe kan je het gemakkelijkste connecties maken met je bewustzijn, dat je daardoor ook weer verder kan expanderen.
Each and every person who's participating, including the people in this room, do it differently. So that's kind of funny. Okay, can you repeat? I'm sorry. Could you repeat that question again, Gerard?
Nee. En mogen jullie nu helpen? Nou ja, je bent eigenlijk bezig met je bewustzijn. En eigenlijk wil je naar een altered state. En dat doe je ook al af en toe. Maar je wil eigenlijk dat je jezelf gewoon gemakkelijker kan communiceren. Of op alle vlakken kan bewegen. En eigenlijk is dat gewoon bewustzijn. Want je kan van de ene kant naar de andere kant.
Okay. So we're going to split out awareness and consciousness.
Ja.
Je zal moeten beginnen, you'll have to begin with awareness. First, you become aware that there is more than just you. Just like you become aware that there are 10 people in the store, for example. Okay, that awareness then becomes the connection to consciousness. And then we talk about conscious awareness. Conscious awareness, that's the way to expand your capacity. Okay? And that, the easiest way to do that is to have a discipline. Some of the disciplines are so simple, but so difficult to carry out consistently. For instance, if you see something out of place, you create a discipline that you become aware that shelf, you don't want to do your entire house or your entire office, just pick one shelf. That shelf has something out of place. You constantly are aware. You consciously will not move on until you've put things in place. If you have a tendency to obsessiveness, don't do this discipline.
Nee,
Because obsessiveness does not count. It will not help you. It'll just make you more ill. Okay. Another thing, when you walk, you become so aware of your surroundings. When we walk and we have a tree, right?
Yeah.
What's fastest? We duck. We don't even look. You ask, what kind of tree was that you ducked for? Simple discipline. You notice the tree, you notice the leaves, you become very aware of that which is in front of you and stopping you from doing your normal walk.
Eigenlijk ben je,
Conscious awareness.
dus eigenlijk ben je de hele tijd eigenlijk in contact met je omgeving. Dus je
Yes, and
ja.
And what you're doing. Another nice place is Redbud brought up cooking. Wees bewust van je eten.
Ja.
Okay? Whether it's meat or vegetables, people have an easier time seeing how difficult it is to become aware of eating meat, because then you say, okay, this was attached to a leg. This leg was attached to a cute, innocent lamb.
Yeah.
The acceptance of the reality of what we're doing, that we're consuming something that was alive, that also had a life, is important. Then you go to your vegetables. So you consciously are washing your vegetables and preparing the food. Conscious awareness. One thing that it grew in me, that if I'm very, very mad or grouchy, and I know I have to cook, I actually go through the trouble of calming myself and pushing that out. It's energy.
Dus eigenlijk als je dat hebt en je gaat koken bijvoorbeeld en je bent niet goed in balans, dan zou je dat ook kunnen doorgeven.
Yes, and that's karma right there.
Yeah.
Especially if other people are eating it. And then you say, well, what if you're the only one who's eating the meal? Hello, you need to respect first the food, then your body.
Yeah.
So it's all these little things. If you're talking to someone and you're irritated, become aware. Why are you irritated? Take the trouble. Why were you aggressive with that person? Why were you being dominant? Was it really necessary? Or were you in a state that you were mad at something else? become aware. Hey, isn't that what I basically wrote in Inge's thoughts, I think, too, just today, about the what is really not the only thing. You also have to know the why,
Yeah,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
how.
you mean the app group, the WhatsApp group Inge's thoughts
Yeah,
for the viewers at home.
yes. Maybe I should make a spot once I have time for Facebook and Inge's thoughts. Or they call things blogs. I don't know. We'll have to see. But I refer to contemplation on that. Not just the action, but why. Why did you choose that? So then you become consciously aware.
Yeah.
That strengthens that respect for consciousness, strengthens your connection with consciousness. Then you feel more. Then you have to adjust, because then you get an influx of information. You see, even coming here and taking the time for this very first tryout of question answer gives chances for you. Because by posting this, we're trusting that nobody's going to say very mean things like, "What? Look at that person," or "What are they talking about?"
It's their karma.
Exactly. We are taking the step that we have enough trust in what we're doing, that the intention here is to share, to open up, to keep a positive energy moving and supporting the movement. The movement that I talk about is the preparation for transformation.
Ja, daarom.
And helping as many people at least be touched by new ideas or a different way of looking at things. Because the transformation really needs everyone. And everyone, because none of us want to leave anybody behind.
Yeah.
All are part of the same species.
Mhm.
We need to be one.
En als je het dan hebt over, we zijn allemaal part of the same species. Er zijn nu heel veel mensen. Het is heel druk op aarde op dit moment. Hoor je dan in de populaire spirituele wereld. Er komen veel zielen op af om dit mee te maken, dit te mogen meemaken. Maar dat zijn niet allemaal, laten we zeggen, aardse zielen. Ja, dat is wel interessant natuurlijk.
Are you talking about souls? Or are you talking about life sparks?
Eigenlijk beide. En life sparks vind ik wel interessant inderdaad. Want een ziel kan natuurlijk op verschillende planes en werelden zijn.
Yes. And there are beings with the equivalent of a soul, but it's not a soul. The soul is specific to what we call humanity.
Aha.
Okay, but there are others that are they look just like humans, and in fact there are people now that you could call it a mixed race. So in the end, whether we like it or not, everything splits out to where that part belongs, because that is the way for us to come back to the harmony of one, to the original. So the beginning and the end, not trying to be biblical, but the beginning and the end goes back. So, you know, people say well, they don't have souls. Well, they have an equivalent of soul. And that equivalent makes them recognize where they belong.
Ja.
it's a common denominator. So when I say soul in this case, I'm not talking about the soul in the Bible. I'm talking about the soul that the spirit works very hard for and make the soul grow in wisdom, knowing.
Mhm.
And I have to let you know there are other people who have other ideas. I believe their soul, therefore we have spirit, and the spirit is what helps us to be able to grow. The human body also helps us to grow. The soul is actually just alive energy and makes us a part of what we are a part of, the one that we are a part of.
Yeah.
And there are people who say, no, the spirit's on top. So it
Yeah,
depends on
yeah.
your point of reference. But
Yeah.
there are other things that serve like a soul, but they're not so. So then I
Mhm.
call them life spark. The God spark is closer to the biblical soul, but it's a little bit bigger because that is also what gives us life, which without that, our body wouldn't live. It's what created us. The God spark happens at inception. And then we can go back. Yeah, but then you have the egg and the sperm. The egg and the sperm also have a God spark, because without the God spark, they're not alive.
Yeah,
They're not alive to come together to make new life.
yeah.
So the verbiage gets kind of confusing. I apologize for that. I'm always looking for more words to explain.
Yeah.
Okay. Any more questions on that?
Nou, over meer souls of godsparks die naar de aarde komen, is het altijd een eigen keus.
Oh,
Oeh.
I don't know. I can't remember how many years ago I sort of made a decision in myself is not all souls or beings are here by choice. From very young, you hear you chose your parents. You chose to be born. I don't experience my presence on earth as me choosing. I experience my being on earth as there was something to do, and they brought me to where there was something to do, and it's okay.
And
I
is
did
it
not.
because you wanted to do what
Hmm?
you want? Because you wanted to do this also.
It's not want in the sense of want. When you're looking at pure function,
Mhm.
you just do, no
Mhm.
matter where it is. If it was the moon, that's
It's sometimes like we're projecting these concepts from Earth, like being forced to, and like having a choice or whatever, or like wanting. Perhaps these are like earthly things, which are
You,
like
the want.
Mhm.
The word want has a very earthbound understanding. So I could say, I try to avoid to use the word want, and I go, my commitment to the creator or the eternal, by whatever name, it's the
Mhm.
same, or God.
Mhm.
Okay, you
So
can say
yourself.
God, but then you have a layer of many gods, and that's different again. So I don't experience, if I look back, and my questions from years and years ago is, how did this be? And the visions, I have not yet once felt or seen that I chose to be born with the family, or that I chose to be here. But there's stuff here, and it's part of the job.
there was an opportunity, and yeah, then you have to take it because it's function.
Yep.
It's not like you have a job opening and you apply and you get hired or whatever.
Yep. You're made for the function that you have. Like
Mhm.
all of you are made for the function that you have. And that is why there's also confusion around about the word equal. There is real equality. But what it is, one person does this thing, another person does that thing. You see, so the word equal, that concept in an earthly setting is very different, because equal means equal pay, okay, equal respect in behavior.
Ja, dat is
When
heel
you're
goed.
looking at energy, it's equal respect because you respect everything. Okay.
Responsibility is also, you can also apply that to equal.
Yes, especially if you're in body, then you have all kinds of responsibilities. And the more you know, the more responsibility you have. Because you affect other people. And if you're the one who's causing confusion in other people, when you know better,
Het is niet best.
okay, their behavior, if it ends up being negative, is your responsibility because you knew better. It's as simple as that. And at the same time not, because the road to failure is paved with good intentions.
Yeah.
But intention counts for a lot.
Zeker.
You know,
Een soort safe, fail-safe.
yeah, it is because we all make mistakes because we're in a human body. But if you intentionally abuse your knowing to manipulate for your convenience and your decisions someone else into doing as you want instead of what they need to do, guess what? Karma.
Yeah. And but maybe that is also part of their function to act like that.
Yeah, because like Earth is a huge school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Just the same, I do my best not to mislead anyone, just in case it happens to not be their function to be misled.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
there are people whose function it is to be misled.
No, this is how it works. That person had to fill a place. So then that person is placed in the correct place and time. That's how that works. It's not that they're sent to you and their function is to bug you or to mislead you or to tempt you into. That's not how it works. Let's say 5 people are meant to be saviors. 2 people are meant to be saved. And if there's 7 left, well, you know, we have to take a look at that. Okay, maybe 1 or 2 have to come back a few times. It sounds so simple, but it's not at all.
We zijn bij de
All in the
afsluiting.
game.
Okay.
Kan je nog iets zeggen wat nuttig is voor de komende 12 maanden? Voor de komende periode. Het mag ook een kortere periode zijn.
I'll make it really short. October, November. Become aware of yourself, what you are, your shortcomings. Do your best to embrace even those shortcomings. That doesn't mean say, oh, I'm so happy. No, embrace them, respect them for what they are, work on them, become aware as much as possible. Stay open for information. Everything that people have tried to teach you in workshops, personal experiences, do your best to review them and learn as much as you can, gain as much wisdom Knowledge without wisdom is a trap.
Okay.
October, November.
Want dan is het handig, of dan komt het samen, dan zul je het nodig hebben.
There's a decision coming, and in October and November, we're not, I can't go into detail, but there was a movement and it was flowing along pretty reasonably. And some things happened. And until October and November, there's room to have that movement continue. That carries evolution in it as well. But in October, November, we'll know more. If things don't work out, then the movement will still happen, but it will take a little bend in the road.
Ja.
Which, that means even more hard times.
Okay.
For humanity somewhere.
Mm.
So 12 months is too long. There's just too much stuff is happening. Don't look at 12 months. Stay within this year. And wisdom, wisdom, wisdom. If you want wisdom, then of course, understanding, understanding, understanding.
Okay.
Know yourself. The most important person for you to know is yourself. Not your loved one, not your children, not your parents. No, no one is more important for you to know than yourself. And there's a whole lot of work for people to do that because there's acceptance, there's this, there's that. It's a lifetime of work.
Ja.
Mark says that's the closer, but if there's anybody who has anything else or helpful suggestions, what are you doing? Oh, he says I have to push the stop record button.